Imagine that you're on a vast expanse of land with loved ones, family, and friends. It's a warm, sunny day, and everybody's come out there just to be outside together. There's a nice, warm breeze that comes over the hills behind you, and on this breeze, you hear a sound that you don't recognize. At first, you just want to ignore it because it's a beautiful day, and you don't want to be bothered by anything, but you can't ignore it for long because it's getting louder. And you realize that something is coming up behind you. You look to see what it is, and this machine comes up and over the hill, and it's obviously headed to you and all your friends and everybody. So everybody starts running. And here it comes, swooping around behind you. It's louder and louder. Panic ensues. Everybody's running as fast as they can, and you can't stop because if you do, you'll be trampled. Up ahead, you see there's an enclosure that you're being pushed towards, and there's no way to go anywhere else because that thing is pushing you there. Next thing you know, you're in that enclosure, the gate slams, and you are locked in. You've lost your home, you've lost your family, and you've lost your independence. This is what happens to our wild horses when we gather them. We gather our wild horses because they live on fenced-in land. The horses multiply, and they double the size of their herd every 5 years. We take horses off the land when we gather them because we have to keep the numbers down on the land. The land is limited. Those horses that are taken off the land, if they're not adopted, they go into holding pens for the rest of their lives. I'm here to tell you the story of our wild horses. That's complex and controversial. That's full of darkness, but also full of so much beauty. So much beauty. So let's go there first. I've been visiting the wild horse herds out on the range for 7 years, 8 years. And I'll never forget the first time that I went. I went up to the Sandwash Basin just above Craig, Colorado, by myself. And it was the first time I'd ever been out there. And I was really taken by the starkness of this land. It's a huge basin, and there's hardly any trees. It's high desert, so it's dusty and sparse. And there's four-wheelers and dirt bikers and campers and photographers because this is multi-use land. Most of our horses live on multi-use land. So I'm driving along looking for horses, and I see a little group of horses off the road. And so I park my car, get my camera out of my little stool, and I start hiking out there. And as I'm walking through the sage, it comes up and it just covers me, the smell of sage. And the only color out there are the cactus that are blooming, pink, yellow, white flowers. So I approached this herd of horses. And horses live in what's called little family bands. And I got as far as I felt like I could before I would push them away. And I was really surprised how close I could get. And I sat on my little stool and sat there with them for a couple hours. And I was so enchanted by their beauty. This is a really colorful herd up there because paint horses have been introduced, which is a horse with color, like spots and things. So I sat with this group of horses, and the stallion always stands off on a hill, watching over his little family. And so he's over on the hill, real rugged, muscular. They always look kind of beat up, because they fight, really cool looking. And then right here, the mare's a female horse, watching over the babies. So there were little babies sitting on the ground, sleeping. And then behind the mares were the older young horses that were really curious. They're looking at me, really curious. These animals like us. I don't know why, but they really do. And so I was changed by that experience. And finally, they got up and walked off. The lead mare always leads the way. The mom, the major mom, the head mom, she's like, okay, it's time to go. They're like, okay, let's go. And the stallion always pushes from behind, and they walked away. And ever since that moment, I have been so excited. I have passion for these animals. And that's why I'm here today. I want to advocate for them. Once Marianne and I went out on the range together. Marianne's a photographer. Those are her photographs in the back. And we were out with the same herd. And we were able to watch a stallion and a mare mate. And I'm saying this because, first of all, it's really cool to be able to watch that. But also, what I want to say is that the wild horses wake up our primal energies. They help us remember that we're part animal. And they help us remember how to feel. And I think this is something we're forgetting. I think we're forgetting how to feel. So we walked away from that day so charged with that energy of watching that primal act. And it was beautiful. It, too, was incredibly beautiful. I'm so passionate about advocating for these horses that my husband and I adopted 2 little baby Mustangs a year ago. And I've been gentling them ever since. And it has been an incredible experience. They teach me every day. They teach me about vulnerability, how they will override their instinct to run because they're an animal of flight. So their first instinct is, I'm out of here, I don't feel safe. And they will let me put a rope halter on their face and lead them around. It's been so fun. And the reason I adopted them is because I wanted to know firsthand the unique characteristics of a wild horse as opposed to a domesticated horse. And I've been learning that every day. I want to tell you a great story about that. So my granddaughter came to visit, only after about a month that we'd had these little babies. And I couldn't even touch them yet. It took 8 weeks before I could even touch them because I was committed to gentling them without any force, letting them show me what they were ready for. So Leah was 4 years old, and we were standing at the stall door every morning, and it was the morning she was going to leave. And she'd been there about 8 days, so they were getting used to her. And we sat down, and Inanna, the little filly, which is a young female horse, started to approach her. And I said, Leah, I think Inanna's going to give you a kiss. Because by then, Leah was walking up and touching her mouth to my mouth or my nose. They like to smell your breath. That's how they get to know who you are. And so I said, you have to be very still. You can't move and you can't say anything, because if you do, you'll scare her. And she said, okay. So Inanna came up and kissed her right on the nose and then backed up. And I said to Leah, Leah, that was a kiss. And Leah said, she calls me Inanna too, that's my name for grandmother. She said, Inanna, tears are coming to my eyes. So these horses break our hearts open. Break our hearts open. So that's why I'm here. Oh. Most people don't even know we have wild horses. And I'm just curious, if you'd like to guess, how many wild horses do you think we have? Anybody? In the United States. In the United States. Just take a guess. 50,000. 300? Thank you. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Currently, we have over 100,000 wild horses roaming 10 western states. Well, I've been coaching her. 100,000. 67,000 of the over 100,000 are roaming out on the range in what we call herd management areas. Over 43,000 wild horses are standing in holding facilities. So how did we get to this? How did we get to this? That's what I'm here to talk about. So let me back up and tell you a little history so that you'll understand how we got where we are today. It is said that the original horse, Eohippus, which was a little forest animal, died off 10,000 years ago on the American continent. Then the Spanish conquistadors came over in the 1400s, and they brought their horses with them to explore the Americas. When they left their horses behind. And the horse is one of 4 species that can go from being in the wild to being domesticated and back out to the wild. And they do it really well. So these horses thrived. They multiplied. The Native Americans were thrilled. At that time, they were just using dogs to carry their packs. And they're like, cool. And in fact, their name for a horse was Big Dog. So they immediately became amazing horsemen and horsewomen. The pioneers used the horses to pull their carts and wagons. We used the horse, the cavalry took them out to war. We used them all through history. They actually shifted our history. Without their power, we could not have done what we did. And what's so cool is when they needed a horse, they'd go get one out of the wild, train it, use it, and then when they were finished, they'd throw it back out there. And the horses were like, fine. So this went on until the 1970s, until the horses had multiplied so much that they had become a nuisance. And people were shooting them on sight, and they were killing them for dog food. And along came Wild Horse Annie, Thelma Johnston, and she's like, this is not okay. And so she pioneered the enactment of the Wild Horse and Burro Act, which says that the wild horses are an icon of the West, and they deserve to be protected and treated humanely, that they need to stay on the lands where they were originally found, and that the Bureau of Land Management is the managing agency for our wild horses. So now I want to share with you a bit of the darkness. Excuse me. So the Bureau of Land Management is under the Department of Interior. It's in our government. Congress decides on their budget, and it also decides how they can spend their budget. They manage all the resources of the land. So not only do they manage our wild horse and burro program, but they also manage oil and gas rights, water rights, mineral rights, grazing rights, camping, so many, many, many responsibilities. The Bureau of Land Management budget for the wild horse and burros, they're spending 2/3 of it, 2/3 of their budget, just to feed the horses in holding pens. Just to feed and care the horses in holding pens. There are so many lawsuits right now against the Bureau of Land Management by wild horse advocates, people that want to save the wild horses, and I get it, believe me, I get it. But what has happened is that the Bureau of Land Management has become paralyzed. They can't do the work that they want to do because, number one, their budget, so much of their budget is going to the horses in holding pens. And they have so many lawsuits against them, they've stopped gathering. So they're not taking the horses off the range anymore right now because they don't have anywhere to put them, first of all. And also because these lawsuits are against the gathers. So what I want to say to you is, how is any of this helping the horses? Those 67,000 horses out on the range, it's estimated that that is 3 times the number the land can support. That the number should be around 25,000. So I think it's time for us to recognize that, number one, this program needs a big overhaul. And number two, I think, whenever something like this happens, I'm always like, what is the lesson here? What are the horses teaching us? And what I'm gestulating is that they're asking us to come to a higher consciousness. They're asking us to recognize that we can rise above, if you will, integrate, whatever word you want to use, our particular beliefs, our particular stories around this, our particular emotions and feelings, and come together out of love and compassion for the well-being of these creatures. These horses have served us from the beginning of time, and I think they have huge value out in the wild. I think they're here to heal us. I think the horses are here to teach us many things. So I have a vision. And this just came to me. I've talked to so many people, Bureau of Land Management people, wild horse experts, so many people. And what came out of all that, which was really great, is that I think we should create a task force in Colorado. And I think Colorado should be an exemplary state by taking on, with creative thinking and really great new, beautiful, bright ideas. And here's a few. I think we should create an eco-tourist resort for wild horses, because people come from all over the world to see our wild horses. They love the wild horses. And apparently there's plenty of land, I understand, that's hearsay, but that could be devoted to that. And we could take some of those horses out of the holding pens and put them on this land and charge money and make money to pay for the horses. I think we need to dedicate other land to just the horses, not multi-use land, because the multi-use land depletes the land, of course. I encourage you to support the groups we have here in Colorado that are doing a great job. We have 3 wild horse herds here in Colorado. And we have 3 volunteer groups that are doing great work. They're involved on the ground, doing water, food, all that. They document the herds. All the horses have names. They love these horses. Everyone that's involved with these horses loves these horses. It's just such an emotionally filled thing. And you know what I think it is? We love them so much, it breaks our heart, and then we don't know what to do with a broken heart. And what I want to say to you is, let it be broken. It's going to get broken again and again and again in these kind of issues. And I find if you just integrate the pain that comes, there's nothing wrong. It's just painful, right? And then your heart gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you can hold even more. So if there was one thing I would ask you to do, it is go see our wild horses. Go visit them, because I know if you get in front of them, anybody I've taken out there, it changes them. And it's so hard for me to put into words to you what happens. For every person, it's different. But I know if you go out there and visit them, you will be blessed. You will be empowered by these animals whose medicine is power. And not necessarily in a way that's destructive, but in a way that's healing. Thank you.